Hello, and welcome to our Resource and Waste Engagement webinar, where we'll be guiding you through our proposals to take Kirklees forward to deliver our Zero Waste Kirklees vision. This is a live YouTube presentation which is being recorded, so please post any questions or comments you have in our live chat box as we go through, and I will pick them up at the end of the presentation. I'll start by introducing myself and my fellow panel members tonight. We are joined on the panel by Councillor Mather, who is our Cabinet Member for Greener Kirklees and with special responsibility for the development of this strategy. Councillor Walker, who's our Cabinet Member for Culture and Environment. Laurie Hunter, who is our Commercial and Technical Delivery Manager. Natalie Stone is our Programme Manager with special responsibility for delivery of the strategy, and myself, Sue Proctor, as Director of Environment here at Kirklees. So our intentions today are to take you through the vision for Zero Waste Kirklees and introduce our engagement materials to you. There's a wide variety of those on the virtual net, and you'll be able to look at them after the presentation. We're going to provide you with an overview of the proposed changes to the services that we will be moving forward with in the future in Kirklees. And most importantly for us is how you can get involved in that process. Our intentions are very much that we need to listen and be influenced by the views of the communities across Kirklees. And this is our engagement opportunity to do that. So it's very important to us that we hear your views. So I'll start by handing over to Laurie Hunter.
Super, thanks, Sue. So, as Sue had mentioned, our key focus of our Kirklees resources and waste strategy is Zero Waste Kirklees. So, we really are just wanting to change the culture of how our residents think about waste. So, you can see on the slide that we've got our vision statement, which really does focus on that culture change. So, we're wanting a clean, green, sustainable future for Kirklees with zero waste to landfill, and where waste is valued as a resource, so through reuse, recycling and recovery. So we really are trying to change the way our residents think about waste. So on the next slide, obviously we're in and amongst COVID, so it makes it very difficult for us to do a huge range of engagement, but we think we've got quite a bit available to you on our website. So we hope you can visit that web page just at the top of the slide. There's quite a bit there. So we've got waste minimization, which is focused through a couple of journeys, which I'll go through in a minute. There's some waste and recycling collection changes that we're looking to propose, and you can see some information on our website, again, as above. We've got a virtual street for you, so we'll demonstrate that for you in a little bit. And that's essentially a hub and a navigation model whereby you can just kind of look through different areas and verify and have a look at the different options and variations that we're looking to propose. So we'll do that in a minute. And the real key one for us is the online survey. We really do want as many people as possible to complete that. I think at the moment we've just ticked over 3,000 surveys. So thank you to those individuals who've completed that so far. And we really do want to get as much response as possible. So the whole point of this phase, before we publish anything at all, is to get Kirklees residents' views. So it'd be great if you could participate and have a look at what's online and complete that survey for us. So I'll just a quick whistle-stop tour on the journeys that we've designed for you. What we're really trying to do here is just explain to some residents the importance of some of the waste elements that we create. So the first one, which is intriguing, is the journey of a yogurt pot. What do you do with your yogurt pot once you've had it? Have you thought about different elements and what goes into creating that yogurt pot, the energy that goes into creating it, and the impact on climate change, all those sorts of things. Can you, before buying yogurt, have you thought about maybe making your own? There's lots of really good recipes online that you can have a look through. Have you thought about buying a larger pot rather than having lots of different pots so that you can minimize the amount of plastic waste you're creating? Have you thought about maybe using that pot in your planting projects in the garden, for your seedlings, so that you can give it a different beneficial use before you throw it out? So yes, if you have a look through those pages, again, we'll show you where those are on a virtual street once we get to that section. So that's just some really intriguing thoughts with regards to what we can do with yogurt pots. The food waste story is another one. So with regards to what you do with your shopping list. So food waste is an amazing 36% of the contents of our bins. So it is a huge proportion. We really do want to try and highlight to residents how they can save money in their food shop. Do yourself a list before you go. Do you understand the carbon impact of where you're getting your food? Some of them some items come from different countries. Understanding kind of that element of things, saving money in your food shop, doing a list, all sorts of hints and tips that you could do when you're considering your food waste. Is there any composting that you can do at home to help minimize waste, and then to help kind of provide nutrients to any gardening that you're doing? Is there any composting that you can do? So all sorts of ideas and intriguing ideas through those material journeys. So what we'll do now is we will show you our animation for what our collection changes can be. So we'll just play the video now for you. Okay, super. Hope you found that interesting and seen something new that we're looking to provide. So if you look on the slide that we're sharing at the moment, there's potential for glass recycling back at the curbside. So we're really excited about that. And we know a lot of our residents are excited for it as well. So we hope that can accommodate most residents. However, there will be some areas, some properties whereby 3 bins is quite a bit, and we do have some alternatives which you've seen in the video with regards to the caddy that would sit within the green bin, which is interesting. And then you'll have noticed some additions to the green bin, which is great as well. And then finally, food waste caddy, and introducing something separate for that, given that it's such a huge proportion of our grey bin at the moment. So what I'll do now is I'll hand over to Natalie, who will do a virtual demonstration of the street that we have on our website, which we're really excited about. Natalie?
Wonderful, thank you, Laurie. So bear with me a second and I will just load it up for everyone to see. Okay, so up on our website, we have our virtual room. So once you click into there, this is what that looks like. I won't play this video for you now, but it's a really nice welcome video to our engagement, which features both Councillor Mather and Councillor Walker. So I do encourage everyone to have a watch of that video. It's in our room, and it's also on our website. It's just a little welcome message which just explains what our room is, what it is that we're engaging about, and the sorts of materials that you'll find in the room. But what I'll do is I'll pop in here now for you. So what we have here is what we call our hub. So once you click into the virtual room, this is what you can see. And I'll try and pan around this slowly so that I don't make myself seasick. But what we've essentially tried to do is, on the animation that you just saw, you saw how we're proposing to introduce some new collections. And so rather than just saying that you're going to be getting a new bin, or it could look like this, we've actually taken sort of the 4 most typical properties across the borough, which are apartments that you can see on the left. We've got some terraced housing here, and then we've got some houses with outside space, and then also our difficult access housing, so houses that have got lots of steps or slopes. So we've taken and what we've done is we've actually modelled these outside the new collection system outside, so that you get a sense and a feel for what it might look like outside your house. And then so what I'll do is we're going to take you through the materials inside our hub and the things that you can view here. So we'll click over to our recycling section. Here on the yellow screen is where you can view the animation that we've just seen. So if you did want to watch that again, it's on our website and also within our virtual room here. And just to say that all of these little icons with the speaker are accessibility features. So for anyone who needs the screen to read out to them, if this is clicked, then that will read it out to you as well. Just need to make sure this little button down here is on. I will mute it so it doesn't play. Here with our glass bottles is our announcement about glass coming back, which Laurie mentioned for the new glass bins. So this is just our announcement that glass, with new collections, will be coming pending approval of our strategy next year. So then if I come back round to here, I'll take you over to the bottom corner down here, which is our waste composition analysis. So what this is we've looked inside of our grey bins, which we do regularly twice a year, and this is just a breakdown of what we find inside those bins. So as you can see here, it gives you a breakdown of all the different items what are included in the grey bin, and all of these are interactable, so you can click on these, and what it does is it tells you a bit more information about them. So for example, 36% of our grey bins are made up of food waste. So if you click onto this, it just gives some handy tips as to how we can reduce, reuse and compost this material before it needs to go into the bin. And we've got little things, other things as well. So here we've got plastics and the sort of things that we can do to reduce and reuse them before they need to go into the bin. But all of those can be clicked on and viewed. And then I'll take you around to here. So in our top right corner, we have what we call our information portal. So here we have the journeys, which Laurie's just sort of mentioned to you previously. So you can click on these. And again, if you press this option here, it'll read it out to you. But you can click on these and view the stories in full. So you can just click through and it'll tell you all the information which Laurie touched on about the journeys. So we have our food waste one there. And then we also have our yoghurt pot as well. And then at the end, it has some interesting questions, which you'll find in our survey, which is just questioning about, do you want us to collect more plastics at the curbside? Do you mind if they get turned into fuel and not recycled? Or how do you feel about materials being sent outside of Europe for recycling? And all these types of questions can be found on our survey. And then here we have our vision. So on the slide you saw that we had just the two front pages on here, but this is our vision in full. So it talks you through and tells you all the things that we're doing now at the moment, and then how we want to reduce, reuse and recycle more in the future, and what some of our plans are, and which is what we're engaging on with at the moment. So this is in here, and all these materials are also on our website and can be downloaded and viewed separately if needed. So we have just one last thing within our hub, which is the most important part, which is here. So you can click here to take our survey. So as Laurie mentioned, there's a survey that we would like everyone to fill in and get as many people as we can undertaking that. So here, as well as our website, you can take it from directly inside the room. So if you click here, that'll take you off to the survey. And then also for anyone who requires an accessible version of the room, this is our accessibility statement and our welcome message in an accessible format too. So I think what I'll do is I'll show you through, so just to talk you through some of the variations that we've got, I'll take you into our terraced housing, as this is the one that shows most at the moment. So if I come through into here, and it takes you onto our virtual terrace street. And as you can see here, so outside someone's home, this is what potentially our new collection system could look like. So we've got your grey and your green bin, which is just standard and the same as is now. And then also we've got our new glass bin, as well as a food waste caddy. So click on these little information buttons. What these do is it brings up and it just explains what goes into each bin and when they'll be collected. So as you can see here, the grey bin will remain as is. Anything that can't be recycled goes in here, and it will be collected every 2 weeks, which is the same as is now. Then we've got our green bin, which again is the same as it is now. And these are all the materials that you can currently put into your green bin. So for example, our food tins, bottles, all that stuff, which is all can be found on our website. But here is a list of all the things. And then in addition, when we launch our new service, these are the additional items that we'll be able to place in the bin. So things such as you've got like pots, tubs, trays and drinks cartons. And that will remain the same sort of collection every 2 weeks as is now. And then the new glass bins that we have, well, there'll be a slimmer bin. So these are the ones that we have at the moment, unless you have a slimmer bin, will be 240 litres for your grey and green. The new glass recycling bin will be 140 litres, so it's just slightly slimmer. And then the sort of things you'll be able to put in there, all your glass items, so whether it's clear, brown or green, all glass bottles and jars will be able to go in here, except Pyrex. And these bins will be emptied every 2 weeks. So they'll be emptied alongside your green recycling bin. So you won't have another separate collection day. These will be collected at the same time as your green recycling bin every 2 weeks. And then we have our food waste caddy. So when we were to introduce food waste, again, it's just some examples of the sorts of items that can go into your food waste caddy. So that will be sort of dairy, bread, rice, pasta, cooked foods, tea bags, all things like that. The one that you can see on the image is the outside caddy, but you would also be provided with an indoor one, which is a slightly smaller caddy. And the idea is that all your scraps and everything that you want to put in there can then be captured in your kitchen rather than having to go outside every time. So you'd put you'd scrape all your leftovers or any food waste that you have into your little 5 litre caddy, and then you would empty that into your bigger one outside. And then when we introduce food waste, that will be collected every week so that you don't have food sat around, for a fortnight. It would be a weekly collection. So that's what we call our standard variation that we're looking at, for houses have enough space to accommodate that. But we do appreciate that not all houses will have the space to have these additional bins. So we do have different variations which we're looking at, which was mentioned on the animation. And I'll just show you what some of these look like. So we're on to our second variation. So what we have here is you can just see the grey bin is just slightly greyed out, and we have the inner caddy, which you saw on the animation there. On this one, we've got a garden waste bin as well. So this is the initial one there. Just to show we do have a chargeable garden waste collection as well. So if we click on the information, this is the same information on the other one, so I won't repeat that side of it. And same with the green bin. So the green bin wouldn't change either. The only difference would be is that you'd have a little caddy sat on the inside. So rather than having a separate bin for a glass, it just saves a little bit of space where the caddy can sit inside of the green bin. It doesn't mean you have to have the additional space for an additional bin outside your home. So the caddy would take the same materials, same glass bottles and jars as a bin would. And again, it would still be collected every 2 weeks alongside your green bin. And then just for anyone who's interested, so we've got food waste, and we've also got our brown garden waste. So we do offer a chargeable service, and these are emptied every 2 weeks during the growing season. And so all your sort of grass cuttings, hedge clippings, anything like that put into a brown garden waste bin collection. So that's our second variation that we've got. And then our third one, where if people really struggle, we do have a lot of houses where we do struggle for space. So as you can see here on this house, they don't have any room for bins, and so there is potential for these properties, which we do offer for some at the moment, is to be on what we call a liner property, which is where near to their home, which is smaller and more accommodating than a bin, and they'll have bags inside, and it's the bags that get presented for collection. So these wouldn't be sat out all the time on the street, and this would be sort of on presentation day where these bags would come out. So I just click on the information. What you can see is with the green bins, they accept the same materials as the bins do. It's just they're captured in a bag instead. So you've got the same information here, and again, it would be every 2 weeks. Same with a black bag, and then the difference here as well being the variation is with the glass. So if there's no room for a bin, and obviously if they don't have bins to have in a caddy inside the green bin, the option here is to have a box. So to have a box where it's collected the glass. And exactly the same with the others. It'd still be all your bottles and jars, and it will be collected every 2 weeks alongside your green sacks. Would be, and then we just have the food waste again, which would be a separate. So an alternative and an option and variation we have for people who don't have a room to have any additional bins outside the home. And then the last variation that we have is something fairly new here. At the moment, it's in operation in our sort of flats and apartments. But potential that we could have is where we have lots of terraces, where we really, really struggle for space on the streets, and on collection days we have lots of bins out, and it makes it difficult for people walking past and vehicles parking. We do have the potential to move to a communal collection. So as you can see here, you'd have communal bins, potentially at the end of a street or in a convenient location. And what it would mean is that every household on the street wouldn't necessarily have their own bin, but instead have a shared facility. So I'll just click on the information and just show you what that looks like. So again, it'd be exactly the same as it would be with a bin. It'd still be collected every 2 weeks. It'll just be that instead of it being your own bin for your own home, you'll be putting your black bins into a shared grey bin instead. And then same with the recycling, so it's all the same materials. It'll just mean that they're going to a shared bin instead of an individual bin. And again, same with the glass, and same with the food. So it'll all just go into a shared bin instead of an individual caddy. So I think that's it mostly for our variations. I'll just go back to our home, and just to point out that so for anyone who's got flats and apartments, you can see them outside there. It's the same communal collection that I just showed you on the terraces. For anyone who's potentially in difficult access housing, we do have a separate webinar later on next week for those who live in difficult access housing, where we'll be looking a little bit more into the details of those. For those who've got steps and slopes outside the home. And then again, there's a semi-detached home, which can be, but it's similar variations to the ones in the terraces, so I won't show them again. But please do feel free to go have a look in our room and check that out. So I'll stop sharing this now, and then I believe that we're going to go back to the question and answers session, and I'll just hand over back to Sue for her to kick.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much to Laurie and Natalie for that. I get to play a role now of being question master, which is something I've been really looking forward to. When we were deciding who was doing what before, I said I'm asking the questions, not answering them. So Laurie and Natalie are going to be stepping forward for that, but also Councillor Mather and Councillor Walker. If you want to throw in your answers as well, then please do just let me know that you want to take part in that. So we have had a number of questions posted in the live chat, and we have some questions that we have got from our previous webinars as well. So we'll be looking at all of those together, and just looking at some of the ones that have come in the past webinars and the ones tonight. We do have a number of questions on food waste collection. So I think if we just have a few questions on that. So the first question I'm going to ask, I think I'm going to ask Laurie, is when introducing the food waste collections, what will the intention be for where that food goes then? What will we be doing with it?
Okay, so I think all of that's still to be decided, but essentially what we would like to do is to find or build an anaerobic digestion facility. And what that essentially means is we are trying to process it in a more rapid process than natural kind of composting that you'd have. So we'd be able to, by doing that, we'd be able to capture an energy from the composting process, and you could reduce the volume of it. What we can then do with those those reduced volumes is you could use those materials to spread to land. So because it's been purely just food waste, you can spread those to any farmers, local farmers who might need it, could use it on those facilities.
Thank you. So why aren't we collecting the organic waste together with the food waste? So why can't we just put the food waste in with the garden waste?
So guidance from national government suggests that you should try to keep separate waste streams separate. So garden waste can be used for different things than food waste. Food waste does have a biological element that we do need to deal with amongst higher temperatures to deal with those biological elements. With regards to garden waste, it doesn't need such a complicated process, so we can send that elsewhere. There are lots of gardening composting facilities within the area that we can send it to.
Okay, thank you. So will we be keeping garden waste as a chargeable service?
We expect so at this point in time. Yes, there are some, that we're welcome to different ideas. What we're conscious of is not everybody has a garden. A lot of people live in flats. A lot of people don't have a front or back garden. So I think it's probably best remaining as a chargeable. However, we are open to different ideas from different residents.
Okay. Thank you. And some from the live chat tonight. So we've been asked, will the food waste caddy have a separate lid to deter pests like wasps?
Yes is the short answer. So what you tend to have is the lid is attached to the box. You close the lid, there's a handle that you lift and that locks the lid in place. So if the neighbour's cat comes sniffing around, it can tip it over and the lid would stay in place, yes.
And about what size are those outside caddies going to be?
We checked earlier, I think the standard size of them is the outside ones are around 20 litres. You can get some variations which are 23, and then the indoor ones are 5 litres.
Okay. And we've had quite a lot of support in the chat for those food waste collections. We've had this particular question, can tea bags be included in that? And I think I can be brave and say yes. I know the answer to that one. I've got Councillor Mather. You're muted, Councillor Mather, sorry.
Sorry, I suggest if you are into composting and you have a garden, I'd put it in the composter too, because there you're using it, and there are other qualities to tea bags that you can use to grow things much more quickly. You can put the warm tea bags on your eyes and it does away with the eye bags. There's lots of things that you can do, but yes, the answer is you can put it in the food caddy, but think of alternatives.
Thank you. And I think that's the waste reduction message that we want to push through completely. Councillor Walker, were you putting your hand up then?
Yeah, just really to say that I can't compete in terms of beauty tips, but I would encourage people to compost.
Yes, yes. And we just had a question just come in on the, and I'm trying to read it. It's very small writing. For the food waste bin, are we considering offering a bin washing facility for older citizens or disabled residents who might struggle with that?
It isn't something that we had considered. The ones in the kitchen are a relatively small size, so they're only 5 litres. It isn't something we've considered, but I suppose we're collating all these questions and we can certainly consider it. Sorry, Councillor Mather, did you want to add something?
Yes, I do. We have a little one which we wash ourselves. We used to have a bin washing service before, but we don't have it anymore because it's gone private. And I suppose it's something we can consider if there's enough requests. Otherwise, it's not worth putting the service on because everything costs money.
Yeah. And also, would we be taking compostable food packaging in the food waste bin? I'm thinking we're meaning things like paper bags and things there. I would say no. It's really for the food waste in itself that we would want in those bins. Okay, I'm going to move on to glass collection. We've had a couple of questions on the glass collection. We have had a comment that somebody likes the glass collection service proposal, but isn't a big fan of pink and would prefer more neutral shades. Now, I know that we have discussed this ourselves, and that actually neutral shades don't always work for us. And I was wondering who wanted to pick up that question. Natalie. Oh, and well, if we take Natalie and then Councillor Mather, is that okay?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, all I was going to say is that yeah, we haven't determined what colour the bin would be yet. We just want something on our visuals to be just something that stood out. So although we've put pink, it's not determined that it will be a pink bin. It was just something on our visuals to make it stand out more than anything. But yeah, we wouldn't. Yeah, we've not decided on the colour yet.
So, Councillor Mather.
I was going to suggest we needed something bright so that when the collection starts early in the morning or later in the evening, the bins can be seen. So lighting is quite important, and also we wanted a colour that everyone could agree on rather than something that people didn't like. Now the pink looks nice for the presentations, but as Natalie says, we haven't quite decided on which colour we're going to go for. We might go for our logo colour. We don't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And will we be how will we be providing glass collection for those households who are on bag collections?
So that's the box option. So as Natalie showed in the virtual room, for those whose kind of front doors open up right onto a pavement, we would give them a box, a bit like we used to have a few years ago, pre-2010, I believe. It would only be that sort of similar size to that one.
Okay. I'm going to go back to tea bags because someone's asked whether, because there are some plastic elements in some tea bags, the more jazzy ones. Are they okay still for food composting?
Yeah, so any anaerobic digestion facility will have kind of a filtering element, and I think they are normally made from a compostable element. But if there's any filtering process of anything that's not composted, it'll get captured before it is spread to land or passed on or sold as a product.
Okay. Someone's asked the question regarding the communal bins and whether we are concerned that they might become a focus point for fly tipping. Councillor Mather.
There's always bad behaviour. I'm not saying most of our residents are very, very good and they want to recycle, and we look forward to increasing our percentage of recycling. However, we do recognise that by we have communal bins already, but we do recognise that it may require further educative programs, more officers going out, which is a bit difficult at the moment, but we hope that we can actually make sure that individuals are responsible, and others that see one person doing it wrong. Because I've had people come in to me and say, you know, I'm very good, but I know the culprit who's doing this by contaminating our bin, by not sifting it out properly, and we have managed to turn it round. So it does require people to take responsibility, to be vigilant, and over and above our educative campaign, to use the communal bins responsibly. That's all we can say. And as for fly tipping, again, responsibility, and I think we do, the communal ones do have a lock, don't they? I'm not sure. I don't want to give out disinformation.
I think they can have. I think it depends on how we give the access to the residents, but yes, they can have locks on. And I know, you know, you can have them jazzily designed as well. So we do have a few questions in the chat box about the actual materials that we're going to be able to recycle.
I think Councillor Walker was going to.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Walker. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Sue. I just wanted to add really that where we're using communal bins, we will talk with residents as part of the consultation process. We want to talk to people to help design a system that works. We've really got to work with residents on making this system work. So it's really important that we have these discussions.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, a few questions about the materials that we can collect in the recycling collection. So I've got a question. I'm just going to throw a few materials at you. So foil, can that go in now, and will it be able to go in the future?
I think on our website we say it can't go in now, but I think if you had it folded up and there was no, whereby it's obvious there's no food in it, it would probably be accepted and it would probably be recycled. We say no on our website because a lot of people will tend to just bunch up food within the foil, and we tend to get contamination most of the time. But I think residents who are very keen recyclers, if you fold it up into like squares, then it will get captured.
Okay. And then textile waste, and this is things like clothes, soft furnishings. Are we able to collect those?
At this point in time, oh, sorry, Councillor Mather, did you want to?
Laurie, you continue. I'll come in after.
Okay, so at this point in time, no. However, what we are looking at doing with clothing in particular, not so depending on the soft furnishing, we may take some of those. We're looking at a reuse shop at the household waste sites. So we're hoping to do a trial at one in the north of the district, one in the south, so that we can trial it with residents to see how much we can capture, what the quality of it is, what the popularity of it is. Obviously, in and amongst COVID, we have had to delay those plans, unfortunately. But as soon as we are able to, and it's safe to do so, we'll be able to bring those reuse shops online so people can try it out. So yeah, unfortunately not on the curbside, but we would like to do something at household waste sites.
And I think it's also that there are opportunities to donate those items to charities, either as a reuse item, so we have furniture reuse abilities, or as a textile recycling that a lot of charities collect, because it's a valuable product for recovery in that way. But also a question on plastics, so about more opportunity to recycle trays and pots and tubs. Is that where we're going in the future?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit about, again, I would encourage people to read the yogurt pot story, because I think, you know, historically, Kirklees has focused on plastic bottles for a reason. There is a market for plastic bottles. We can find reprocessors more easily than pots, tubs and trays. I don't know if anyone saw the BBC programme, but I believe it was Panorama, whereby we were talking about how far our recycling can travel. So often you take, you know, we will bale up our plastic. A processor will take a certain amount, and there will be onward movement from broker to broker. We target plastic bottles because we don't want our recycling material moving from hand to hand and ending up, like on the Panorama programme, ending up in a Malaysian jungle, whereby you could clearly identify certain items coming from the UK. So we want to be responsible, but we really do want to hear your views. We want to understand what's important to you. Is it more important to get energy in our energy from waste facility locally and your carbon footprint is slashed? Or is it more important to find the best recycling element? So really kind of key questions that are really intriguing, and we could do it some feedback on that.
Okay, thank you, Laurie. Councillor Mather.
I think one of the other things is we need to start pushing back with the manufacturers and making sure that they take their responsibility and making sure that they don't generate excessive waste, things that we don't necessarily need. It may mean shortening the life of the product on the shelf, but at least when it comes, we think of alternative ways of using or reusing, and so I'd like to have a campaign that pushes the responsibility back to the manufacturers. And also in relation to the textiles, I really do think that there's a big campaign at the moment which is saying, you know, don't throw it away, reuse, you know, give away to charities, and you know, charities do some excellent work. And in terms of buying products, shoddy products, they used to sell them by tonnage, and it goes overseas. Now, it might not get to the people we want clothing, but they use it in order to make money. And so it's almost recycling the economy, and it makes use of what we throw away. But I'm not encouraging people to buy excessively, only buy what you need and then use it responsibly and reuse it and recycle. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to move to a few questions that we've got actually on the collection containers themselves. So we've got a question about the bag collection. So how strong are those bags if you have the bag collection?
Oh, they're as strong as a plastic bag can be, I guess. If I compare them to the ones that I buy at my local Tesco's or Morrison's, they are stronger than those. But obviously, if you've got something quite sharp in the bag, you just need to be careful not to put anything sharp in so they don't split. They are. We do buy them specialist in so that they can withstand kind of going down 20, 30 steps without splitting.
And I think it's fair to say that we do already have bag collection services in for those assisted collections or difficult access properties. So it is something where we already have some local lessons and know what works. So we would continue to do that. On the general refuse collection bin, I think it is, no, sorry, the large green bin. Are we going to keep the large green bin in the future?
That's a really good question. Yes, we do have some. So the standard size is a 240. There's a 360, which is just slightly wider in the body. I can't see why not. If we do have some larger families, my only thoughts that come to mind are if you do want the glass caddy that fits inside, it may not fit that size. So you'd probably be restricted to having the glass bin, wheelie bin, rather than having an inner caddy possibly.
Okay, and also we've looked tonight or today at a number of different collection systems that we can put into households. So Natalie's taken through the variety that's on offer. So how are we going to work that? Is everybody going to be able to choose what they want, or are we going to have a one size fits all, or is there going to be areas with different collection systems in place?
This is where place-based learning really comes to its own, I suppose. We've got 184,000. We've got quite a few households in Kirklees. Obviously, taking individual households into account, we need to have the same vehicle and the same process. So I think it will be probably grouped by area or by house type. So we've done it by house type for a reason, so that it is easier for our collection crews. What we don't want is for the collection crews to wheel all the bins onto the wagon, empty it, and forget that that there's a resident at number 14 who has a different process. So I think we'll try to group them in some way, but the survey results again are critical. Getting those survey responses in, we'll be able to, and the reason why you're providing your postcode at the start is so that we can identify those areas and the sorts of communities and what their preferences are. But there will be further sessions of community place-based learning to help us with that process.
Okay, thank you. There's a question about food producers and that they are now looking at different packaging materials and starting to use plant-based packaging materials for their food. And we've been asked the question, which bin would that go in?
That's a really good question. I would imagine it will depend. If it's plant-based, I suppose it could go in your garden waste bin, but really I'd probably, at this stage, it's very early days with all these new products, I would probably put it in your grey bin, use them as much as you can if it's compostable, but I think there's certain labels that you need to look out for. So perhaps that's something, part of our education campaign. I think it's probably something we need to add to our education campaign on what logos to look out for on your compostable products.
And I think it will be that being able to recognise what material is what, and there will be some people who are very able and interested in finding that out, and others who are maybe not so it's being able to have a system or a collection system that suits all people, rather than just those who are maybe a little bit more switched on to the waste issues that we have. I've got a question about the size of, the number of bins that we're providing. So do we feel that providing an increased number of bins is going to lead to people throwing more away?
Potentially. I think we would hope that it would encourage people to recycle, and it would encourage people to use the range of bins. I suppose we wouldn't expect people to throw more away. We would expect people to recycle more. So the additional options are recycling, not general waste, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get materials into different markets.
Yeah, Councillor Mather.
Yeah, I mean, I think it follows what Laurie has said. I hope we will be moving towards recycling. These are options, and I think people will find that the existing bins may, at some point, may be too big because we've really got good at recycling, reuse, lessening our waste, being more responsible. But I suppose initially when people don't understand and it's something new, it might happen. But that is one of the reasons why I think in an earlier session, Laurie spoke about trialing things, not doing everything in one go. It's, phasing things in so people get used to one, and then we change something else, and then we change something else, so that by the time we come to the actual final product of our waste strategy, we've got a system that our residents understand, respect, and use, and it's fit for purpose, not today, not tomorrow, but for the future 10 or 20 years.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, and I think just because we're introducing a new collection system doesn't mean that we're stopping the other work that we're doing. So we will be doing work with households to try and minimise food waste, waste generally. So, for example, with food, we've already done quite a bit of work looking at how households can cut down the amount of food that goes to waste. Whether it's going in the grey bin at the moment or in the future will be going into the Caddy. We're also at the other end looking at working with business, working with producers and retailers. And there are some really interesting projects happening in Kirklees, looking at things like the circular economy, which is the idea of planning production and distribution and consumption so you eliminate waste. So this is happening nationally, but we are doing some work locally here in Kirklees.
Yes, some really positive work that we're doing there. We've got a question about still on packaging, I suppose, in supermarkets and working with them to actually encourage them, cajole them into using less packaging. And we have the example given of half a cucumber shrink wrapped in plastic that, we all know that plastic of that nature is the most difficult. So are we planning to do any work like that?
There are a lot of programs that national government are trying to get underway. So I think that's sitting a little bit more nationally, because that's where the influence is, working with supermarkets. I think in the National Resources and Waste Strategy, which everyone's welcome to go and have a look at, it was published in December 2018, I believe. They're looking at encouraging supermarkets to have a plastic-free aisle as a start. So there'll be one aisle where residents can refill their Tupperware, or they can bring in their own containers of some sort where things are not packaged in plastic. So there's certainly national government push for that. And there's probably some opportunity locally where we can start to work on our own local circular economy solutions. So if there are some producers or supermarkets or even local grocers or markets whereby we're wanting to encourage that, there's nothing stopping us from supporting that sort of activity. Very much like what Councillor Walker was saying with regards to working with our communities, but also working with our local businesses.
Thank you. I've also got a question from somebody, which I think is really a positive question, in that as we don't already fill our 240 litre bins, is it possible to get slimmer bins?
Yes, we'd encourage that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It helps with your streetscape and how the bins look on your property, save you a little bit of space. And yeah, we do have those available. There's a web form online where you can request one.
And so some people are asking, will we have a choice as to which bins we would like, as some people compost their waste food already and they wouldn't want a food bin?
I suppose we would give everyone an equal opportunity to participate in the programme, and you can put it out whenever it suits you. So there might be times in the winter when you're not probably doing as much gardening, whereby you'd want to have a different outlet at certain times of the year. So you would have access to it, and you can present it whenever you wish on the cycle that we provide.
Yes, so we would provide a food collection service. Whether or not you chose as a resident to participate is entirely up to you. We would hope you would use it, but if you've got an alternative composting arrangement for your food waste, then yes, we wouldn't be stopping you doing that. Councillor Mather.
Well, I'm a champion of the fact that we didn't really need to go, and Laurie knows what I'm going to say, go down this road, but our hand is forced by national government policy, and they want us to go down this road. And I think as we become more sophisticated in use and reuse and recycle, and those of us who have the space and the time, we can compost a lot more, because I do think sometimes there's 3 of us in this household, we don't actually use our bins, and so we bring them out when they're full and ready to go. But it may mean 2 or 3 years down the road, we're getting so good in Kirklees, we don't need our food waste caddy.
Yeah. Yes.
What you tend to find when a new food waste service is introduced is residents use it quite a bit. They get really excited about it. They start to fill their bin, and then they realize, oh my gosh, how much food have I wasted? How much money have I spent on that loaf of bread that I've not even opened? So they start to look at their own habits and look at their own shopping lists and all that sort of thing. So we do find there's a natural hump, and then it drops, and then it evens out at a certain participation level. So yeah, that does happen naturally.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions about how we're actually engaging people through this engagement process that we've got here, that the webinar is part of. Firstly, I've got a question about how are we engaging with people who aren't able to get this digital information that we're using at the moment?
Yeah, we're so disappointed that we've gone into a certain phase. Obviously, we want to keep everyone safe and we want to ensure everyone's safe. We had some really great plans to go into local markets, go into communities, have stalls and lots of different locations across the district. And they were really shaping up to be something real special. But unfortunately, we were not able to run those. However, what we can do is you can go on our website and get in touch with us. So there's a little message form, I suppose, where you can request a pack to be sent to you, and we can send you the details to your home. So that you can do that on our website, or by ringing our Kirklees direct office. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Councillor May there.
I just wanted to say that we need to take responsibility by spreading the news. So every other meeting I go to, or webinar or Zoom call, or lots of other things that we do and we do with our families. If one person's heard, they need to say and tell somebody who may not know, and then they can ask us, because honestly, we were so excited that we were going to do so much with our communities to get this fabulous strategy. I'm sure it's going to be fabulous still, but we have been hampered by the current lockdown, which is unlikely to come to an end before we have to make decisions.
Yeah. On a positive note, there will be more phases of engagement. I think Councillor Mather talked about introducing different recycling in phases. That'll give us another opportunity to go into our community. So we are really looking forward to that.
And I think we are looking, being that we are in a lockdown 2.0 or whatever we're referring to it as, we do have a lot of materials that we were going to use, and we're trying to find sites to place those so it wouldn't be a manned engagement, but it would promote the information that we have available and encourage people to contact us to get that information in a hard copy format, so that we can engage with them. So I've got probably quite similar to that, and I think you probably answered the question, but the comments made that whilst this is really, really good, it's probably, well, there's very few people online, but it's really good. Thank you very much to those people who have come. But relatively, it's a small number of people, and probably it's the people who are most engaged and converted to, the waste strategy moving forward that we've got here. So how are we working to actually engage with those who are maybe less interested? Have we already answered that? Is there anything else?
Again, the lockdown we're currently in makes it difficult. However, in future, when we are out of COVID world and it's a different place, we can probably identify those communities that we do struggle to get the right recycling materials in there. So there are some communities we are aware of whereby we know they have issues with recycling for whatever reason. We target them all already in a positive way with regards to providing the right recycling and waste information, with regards to tidying up their bins, ensuring they're all numbered, ensuring that everyone has their bin. So there is some data that we have whereby we can recognise some of the more some of the communities that need the most support. So we can use those as part of our rollout of phasing. Yeah, work in those communities, or we can probably might be able to do a mail shot in some of those areas as well, possibly, if COVID phasing does become a little bit more challenging and lengthy.
Councillor Walker, I think I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, just to sort of add a little bit to what Laurie said, that this is an initial kind of consultation about the change to the system, but it doesn't mean the end of working with the communities and the general public. It's really important that will continue in the future, because these are all messages that you've got to continue reinforcing. So we've got people who do really good work in schools, because we find children who can be really good ambassadors going back home, talking to their parents about things like recycling and waste minimisation. And there are lots of other ways in which we can get in touch with people. People like our waste advisors are out there. They're often seen as the kind of bin police, as people are checking up on you. And that's not really what it's about. one of their key roles is helping households who might not be getting it quite right in terms of what they're putting in the bins, to advise them and encourage them to fit in with the system so it works better. So we'll be working on this in the longer term.
Councillor Mather?
I'm just thinking whilst I was listening to Rob that our 23,000 plus tenants, K&H tenants, they can be easily contactable through our housing officers, and they have recently done a survey where we got the largest, despite it being digital and online, the largest number taking part, even in comparison to the devolution and the elected mayor kind of thing going on regionally. So I was very, very pleased, and I'm hoping that 23,000 plus households will have this information individually or in groups.
Yes, thank you for that, Councillor Mather. I'm just going to ask a question before it disappears off my little board there, about an increase in fly tipping. Now, there's the perception that we're seeing an increase in fly tipping across Kirklees. So what else do we think that could be done to encourage people to deal with their waste properly?
So when we've spoken about it, we spoke about this in another session, which was a quite interesting discussion. So I think when we've looked at our data, and I'm talking pre-COVID, when we've looked at that data, we've not seen significant increases in fly tipping. However, what we did do is we've put quite a bit of resources. We've got now a fly tipping team that can go out and collect fly tipping from when it's reported. So I think as long as residents are reporting them, we will get to them quite quickly. Now, in and amongst COVID, that resource has increased, and so we are definitely getting to things. So we've also have some leafleting that we can do to some residents. So it's about that white van man or whomever else. So getting someone to your home for a £5 to get rid of quite a few materials. If it feels too good to be true, it probably is. And actually, there's an Environment Agency website where you can check if they've got a waste carrier's license. If they don't have a waste carrier's license, it is illegal. So it's about taking a little bit of that personal responsibility. Whilst it's attractive to get rid of a whole boatload of waste for a £5, that can come back to bite you, because what our enforcement team do is they will open up the bags, and if there's a letter with your address on it, you will receive the fine for it, unfortunately. So it's just being really mindful of what those risks are when you do take on that cheap resource.
Councillor Mather.
And you know, some people, not all residents, do behave badly. So as Laurie says, if it's cheap, look twice and be responsible. We're not actually asking you to snoop on your neighbours and passers-by, but be responsible, be vigilant and monitor who's doing what and why they're doing it, because most often the evidence come from our residents by saying, we know who's just tipped this and it's just come round the corner. And often, you know, there's a distinction between what's on our land and what's on private land, and how during COVID, as Laurie has just said, we have put in extra resources, but those resources shouldn't be necessary, because we do have a service which should be able to manage all the household waste. Now, if other people are abusing the system, then we need to be able to make sure that we're able to enforce the law, because we do have a good enforcement unit. And if we find the evidence, and if we have people coming forward, we have had very successful enforcement action, but we shouldn't need to go there, because it's our responsibility. We don't need the blot on the landscape. We want everyone to live in a cleaner, greener space, and that's what we're aiming for.
And it is all part of the behavioural change and the responsibility. And the first word of the strategy is resource and waste strategy, and it's really that switch over from the materials that we don't want anymore. We should be thinking of as a resource first, and then as a waste. So what can it what can be done with it before it hits the bin, really, and that's how we really want people to be thinking. And that sort of links into a question about, and I'll say that somebody said that this is a brilliant session, so thank you very much for that comment. But you're wondering to what extent we actually understand the power of recycling in delivering the wider green agenda, and what are we doing to translate that into how we work with our housings and our neighbourhoods to actually promote that more?
I like that. Yeah, that's Councillor Mather, you go ahead. I think that's a great response. That's the whole point of what we're doing at the moment with regards to waste minimisation and education, is trying to promote that agenda. And it works better in some communities than others, but let's try and get as many people involved in that sort of passion with regards to trying to recycle and maximising that resource opportunity.
So the council takes climate change, climate emergency very, very seriously. And we do that in a number of ways. So when we're talking about our local plan, all the new buildings and the quality of those buildings and heat efficiency, waste minimization, issues to do with the air quality, the open spaces, all of those things are under our radar, and we are always looking to work with our communities if they have other ideas. And one of the things with climate emergency is that sometimes it gets taken up as a middle class issue. So we can't say, oh, because we're educated and, because we're reasonably comfortable, we take our responsibilities on. There's a whole thing about poverty, fuel poverty because you're out of work, poverty because you're on universal credit, poverty because you can't feed your children. So, all those basic human needs take priority. And then all of this, what we're talking about, is secondary. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to stigmatize those communities. There are some communities within our district where we need to work a bit more closely, and work in a way that is actually understood why we're doing what we're doing, and overall the wellness aspect and what it can bring to them in relation to health and well-being, and cooking food and making sure that their homes are well ventilated and their kids walk to school, and if they can, they take part in active travel and use public transport. There are so many things. I could go on all night, and I don't want to, because I get on my soapbox. Yeah. It's your space.
But we do absolutely recognise how important recycling and resource recovery is to that green agenda. Absolutely. I'm just going to ask a couple of questions about building waste. So we've had the comment that fly tipped building waste has been a problem, an increasing problem in Kirklees. And do we as Kirklees Council feel we have contributed to that problem by removing it off the household waste centres?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, and I think that was something that we were worried about. It was about 3 years ago now that we've removed it. We almost expected that if it was real household waste, that tonnage would show up in the grey bin waste or in the residual skip at the household waste sites. We've not really seen a significant increase to the tonnage that we were seeing in the soil and rubble skips at household waste sites. So it is something we need to work a little bit more on. We're not seeing that household waste tonnage there. We think that there were commercial tonnages coming into the household waste sites. However, we could probably look at that again and look at different solutions. So we could look at maybe something chargeable at household waste sites. We can look at limiting the number of bags that people can bring in a year. Those sorts of ideas. It's something that we can explore again. Quite open to that. What we don't want is for it to be a disposal point for businesses and residents, unless we decide, I suppose, that we want to run a commercial deposit point, a chargeable commercial deposit point at one of our household waste sites, which is, I suppose, an option as well.
Mm-hmm. Councillor Mather?
I was actually going to make that very point. So people can bring in, you know, they can still carry out DIY and bring in, the waste, building waste. I think they're allowed to come in on our household recycling centres for 12 times a year. If I'm wrong, please, can the officers tell me what the existing number is? I think it is 12. And we do have a commercial deposit point. People can, the businesses pay to get rid of their waste. Now, if we allow limitless space for people to come into our household recycling centres, how do we know that these are small to medium-sized businesses getting rid of their waste in a place which is for our residents, our households, rather than businesses?
Yes, the 12 visits per year is for our large vehicles. So anything that kind of is a larger vehicle, it needs to be household waste. So you are allowed household waste in those larger vehicles. And Councillor Mather is absolutely right. Trade businesses can use the transfer station over in Dewsbury if they did want to dispose of chargeable commercial waste at our transfer station.
Okay, I'm just mindful that we're getting closer. We've had loads of questions, so I do thank everybody for this. So I'm just going to try and race through a few other questions that have come in. So household chemical waste, so things like cans of paint. Is there going to be a collection system where people who can't get to a household waste centre are able to have that waste collected?
We don't, even on household waste sites, we don't actually get that many cans of paint. I think if it is empty, if it is an empty can of paint, there's no reason why you couldn't put it in your grey bin. If you just have the odd can. If it's a full can of paint, then yes, if you could bring that to the household waste site, then that would be great. There are some, it's worth researching some charities. There are some charitable organisations that do reuse those full cans of paint, which are doing some great things in some of our communities.
Yeah, there's a different outlet for those as well, other than just the disposal route. In new housing developments, are they going to be designed to accommodate all these new bins and the new collection systems we're proposing?
That's a really good question. Sorry, Councillor Walker, you got your hand up first.
Councillor Walker, you're muted.
Yeah, I will let Laurie carry on, and I'll come in perhaps at the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a waste design guide, which if it isn't available on our website now, it will be soon. That one of our officers has just recently completed or updated anyway. So there's a developer's guide that they can use. So what we do encourage when we've got any developments, we've got really close relationships with obviously the council's planning office. We encourage developers to contact the waste services unit. We can go on to site with developers just to talk through what the plans look like. And we do really encourage very early engagement with the council when designing sites. And it is incredibly important. As housing pressures increase, we're tempted to kind of put as many properties as possible in an area. Waste does need to be one of the first considerations, not the last.
Councillor Walker?
Yeah, I think this is a really good question, and Laurie's given it a very good answer. And I think it's correct that one of the improvements, I think, within this council, and probably councils more widely, is that we are joining things up. So we're looking at the disposal of waste when we're going through the planning process. So I think that's a positive. It's something that we need still to get better on, and if we can improve it, it will pay dividends in the future.
Yeah. And I think also, as well as the bins, it's actually accommodating the refuse collection vehicles and the recyclate collection vehicles as well in those spaces, safely and effectively. Yeah, it is a big issue, and we've got to design for the vehicles of the future as well, haven't we? So, just a very quick question: plastic bottle lids, can they be recycled now and in the future?
Yes. I would suggest that if you squeeze all the air out of the bottle, so your milk bottle, for example, squeeze all the air out, put the lid back on, and it's more likely to get recycled than if it were separate to the bottle, if you see what I mean.
Thank you. Couple of questions about contamination. Firstly, we did a lot of work last year, I think it was, on green bin contamination. As an outcome of that, did the actual contamination levels improve?
They did, yes, they did. So we did see an improvement. It's probably fair to say we got some stick from the press on that one, but it was good in some respects, because it meant that people were talking about it, and people were making it an issue in the sense that recycling is important, and we were actually being quoted in some national press as well with regards to Kirklees leading the way and educating residents to what can go in the recycling bin. So yes, we have seen an improvement. I do have to say that during COVID, it has been very difficult for some households. We're all home, we're all trying to cope at home, and sometimes waste capacity is limited for some larger families. So we are being lenient and supportive where we can. So we will pick all that up again in the new year. We've already got our teams lined up to have discussions with our disposal operator to get ourselves ready to pick all that back up again. So yes, we did see a decrease, and we're hoping to get that back on track in our recycling rates as a result of the combination of the garden waste introduction and the green bin monitoring. We saw an extra 3% in our recycling rate, which is good. I know it sounds like a very small amount, but for those two very small changes, it is a really good improvement.
Yes, Councillor Mather.
I just want to say the trial in South Kirklees was very, very successful, despite the fact that there was negative media attention paid by following frustrated households who didn't quite understand when we introduced it. Overall, the pain was worth it, and the recycling rates definitely improved. So I look forward to rolling recycling out to the district rather than just South Kirklees, because that was the only pilot we were able to do.
Yeah. Just another question on contamination, and this is about, maybe accidental contamination of your food caddy or your green waste bin. Is there a facility for that to be sorted by hand back at the waste site?
Sorry, for food waste, I've missed
for
that
food
question.
waste or the recycling bin?
We have a materials recycling facility at the moment. So food waste is, it can't be separated from recycling because it contaminates it. Paper in particular. So food waste does have to be separate. Is that what the question means, do you think?
I think so. I think my answer to that question would be probably not, because that separate for a food caddy, for instance, so you've got 20 litres of food waste that will be going into the back of a food waste collection vehicle. That will go in with the mass. It will not go through a sorting process when it gets to the facility. So it would either be rejected as a contaminated load if it was significant enough, or it would all go into that treatment facility. There isn't a sorting facility at the front end of that. For the recyclate collection in the green bin, it really is about keeping that contamination level down. The material recycling facility and the hand picking belt can pick out some, but actually the cleaner, the better we get that waste stream, the higher value it is. And it means that we're not filling that bin with waste that shouldn't be in there. So yeah, there will be some limited capacity for that, but very limited. Another question that's about to flip off the end of mine is on, I've lost it now. Sorry, I'll go on to another one. We've already sort of touched on to the behavioural change that we've seen during COVID, and that we've seen a bit more contamination in the green bins, for instance. Is there anything else that we've seen during the pandemic that is maybe an opportunity for us in the future?
Oh, I know.
I'll jump in there, Laurie, while you think.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. I'll come out with some positives. That whilst we have seen a little bit more of the contamination of the green bin, and that's probably because of the amount of waste that people have been producing by being at home all the time, and some of those behaviours have been more home cooked meals, for instance, so it's seen more of that material come through the household. What we have also seen is a greater presentation rate of the green bins. So we actually have more people using their recycling bin than we've had before. And I think that's a real positive moving forward. It did create some issues for us on the collection side in that we had to put extra collection vehicles on to actually cope with the increased amount of recycled waste we were collecting. We did also see down on the sort of negative side was more general refuse. So we've actually picked up a significantly greater amount of waste during the pandemic, especially during the lockdown, than we would have ordinarily seen in our waste statistics. But again, that started to settle down again now that we have people back out at work to a large extent, and that we don't have people confined to quarters. So those are the observations that I've got from the pandemic, and I think the one that I get the greatest hope out of is that presentation of green bins, because that's a change in behaviour that people are becoming used to, putting out that green bin for collection. And whilst we deal with the contamination, it is that habit of putting that bin out that I think is a real positive. Does anybody want to add anything to that?
No, I was just thinking about cardboard, I suppose, but we already accept that in the green bin. So there is already a solution for that.
Yeah. Somebody's asked the question about these options. There's a number of options there. There's a presumption that they've been costed. And will we be publishing this information, and how are we proposing to meet those costs?
We have done very high-level assessments, and I suppose there are still detailed assessments that we'll need to do alongside that. We are at this point in time not doing great on recycling. If I'm putting it politely, I suppose we're not the best recycler in the UK. We do need to put some effort in that. National government are really putting pressure on local authorities at this point in time. Whether some funding will surface from national government changes to legislation and further pressure on local authorities to improve recycling remains to be seen. So we're hopeful, and we've got all the research done in the background ready for anything similar to that coming out, so that we can submit our applications for that. So we are hopeful. We've got all sorts of things that are actually maybe relatively low cost that we can do. So adding additional items to the green bin may not be a significant cost, and will help us reduce the amount of waste that goes into the energy from waste facility. So a lot of that is about, I'm getting a little bit technical, I apologise, but it's about maximising recycling with the facilities we have. If everything goes in the grey bin, we have too much to fit in the energy from waste facility, and we will have to landfill it. It's about maximising that recycling facility so that we don't landfill. So really, the savings on landfill by recycling more helps us balance the budgets to many respects, really.
Okay, I really am going to start rocketing through now. We've got 9 minutes till we get cut off line. So I found the question that I couldn't find before. So what about clinical waste such as nappies? How will that be collected?
There's a different differentiation between clinical waste and nappies. So at this point in time, items such as nappies, they go in the grey bin and they help to generate electricity for the council. There is one nappy recycling facility in the country. I think it's Wales, or it's further south anyway. Whether they've got capacity for all local authorities to collect nappies, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the economics of delivering that. However, it is something that we can look at. With regards to clinical waste, so for medical reasons, we do offer a clinical service for kind of medical for medical reasons. If we get in touch with the council, on our website there are details for clinical waste.
Someone's asked the question about the phasing in of the new collection services. Does somebody want to run us through that?
So we are at this point in time, obviously we have to write a Kirklees resources and waste strategy, and we're hoping around spring summer that we have got enough feedback from residents and from various stakeholders to enable us to do that. Once that's published, we can then start the work and starting to create those phases. It's very early stages, but as you've seen in the leaflet that Natalie showed in the virtual room, we're looking at glass at around 2021. We hope that just before that we can do something with the green bins with regards to increasing the plastics and cartons to be included in that. Food waste, we think, will be after that. Obviously, we don't have a facility at this point in time. From initial research that we've completed, we don't know of an anaerobic digestion facility that exists with capacity nearby. So we need to do some further research into the food waste. So I think if there was one element that was slightly later, it would be food waste. But again, supporting what Councillor Mather was saying earlier, the phased approach would probably help us support residents to with that change process over a period of time.
Okay, thank you. We're talking about a lot of increase in the collection services. Are we going to be recruiting more staff to deliver those services?
Well, we'll have additional rounds. So yes, we will have more vehicles in the area. But as Natalie described, we'll be collecting things at the same time. So your green bin and your pink bin, or whichever colour we chose, will be collected by the same vehicle. So you won't have more wagons going down until we then start to introduce that food waste collection. So it's that food waste collection that will then increase on vehicles and staff.
And very quickly, before I do my summing up, Tetra Packs, yes or no?
I would love to. That is part of something that we're looking at doing sooner rather than later. But what we're not seeing in our waste composition analysis is a lot of it in our grey bin or in our green bin. So not a lot of materials are produced in Tetra Pak. However, it is something that we're working on. Yeah.
And gift wrapping. There's an issue with the shiny bits on gift wrapping. Is that something?
I think this is where the minimization comes in, that smart shopping. So things that feel like they're foil. So there was the Crinkle Test that Wrap released last year, which I thought was fantastic. If you can crinkle it, if it pops up straight away, then it's probably made of plastic. Don't use it or buy it. Anything that looks like it's foily or glittery, avoid purchasing it. So I try to focus on kind of like the brown paper bag kind of look with some red and green colouring in it that looks quite pretty with a decent kind of tie. So it's all about what you buy. Those can be recycled.
Yeah, and it's that behavioural change. It's steering people away from those products that can't be recycled. The last comment that we've got there is more of a comment than a question, but actually it's one that I can probably address myself, is it would be really nice if the compost that we produce could be used on our own Kirklees parks and the open spaces that we have. And absolutely, yes, that would be something that we would be looking at. Obviously, it has to meet a quality standard, but that absolutely is that sort of closed loop treatment of our own materials that we would be looking at. So yeah, and that would tie in greatly with our massive tree planting projects and our biodiversity projects that we've got on the way as well. So I think that if I've got 4 minutes now to sum up before I don't know what happens at 7:30. I don't know whether the guillotine comes down or what, but I just wanted to say thank you very much to everybody who's participated tonight. We did have a crib sheet of questions that had been asked before, just in case everybody dried up and we didn't have enough questions. But we've had a fabulous engagement from you all tonight. So I'd really just want to say thank you very, very much for all of that. And I would just recommend that you all take the best advantage of the materials that we have published, but also to promote and sell this message. You are now advocates for this. You go out and spread the word, and we rely on you doing that as much as everybody else. Laurie, was that you putting your hand up?
Yeah, I just want one more thing. It's part of that call for support. You'll notice in the survey we're asking for recycling champions. Any champions that want to be involved, we'll be doing these sorts of things, these virtual discussions, just to try and get that community discussion going. So yes, please tick that box that says I'd like to be a recycling champion, and we can kickstart those.
And Councillor Mather?
And any relatives who aren't digitally savvy and you've got your mobile and you're sitting next to them, help them complete that survey. The more we get, the better the service we will provide.
And that's the important thing about these events. We can talk about this until, you know, we're blue in the face, cows come home, all of those sayings, but it's really about listening to our communities across Kirklees as to what we can do to make this work in the future, which is the important thing for us. So please engage with that as much as possible. I would also just like to say thank you to the people behind the scenes. So we have Terence, Olivia, Susie and Denise, who have been sat there very quietly feeding the questions through to me, making sure that we know that everything's happening and keeping us online. So thank you very much to you for doing that for us. But also thank you very much to my panel members who have taken a lot of questions tonight. So thank you for that. And I think it just stays with me just to say thank you very much and to bid you all a fond farewell. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you and good night, everybody.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you.